You are listening to Film vs. Analytics, a Fantasy Points podcast where each day we discuss a new rookie based on the Dynasty ADP, battling them out film versus analytics. I am your host, Brett Whitefield, the resident film expert. I will be joined by Scott Barrett, the analytics beast. We are Fantasy Points.
What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Scott, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to be here. Film versus Analytics, a beloved show. We got nominated for an FSWA award. Perhaps the highlight of my career was round one of the NFL draft. I was DMing with an NFL director of analytics talking about a player they drafted on the offensive side. And we talked back and forth about a number of the pros and cons I saw. And, they kind of saw it the same way. And yeah, man. So I don't think there's a better combination in the world than you and me, man. I think you're I think I'm a pretty solid analytics guy. I think you are, I know people are going to think I'm biased because we're on the same team here. We both work at Fantasy Points, but I really think you are the best. And when it comes to film grades, no one's coming close to your hit rate. It's really absurd. And there's so many great people in the industry, but your hit rate, there's so many things where you're alone on an island. I think this guy fails, or I think this guy is a superstar, and no one else is saying the same. No one else. And then you're exactly right, and right for the right reasons. And so, we're going to battle it out. There's going to be players we disagree on. We're going to have our debates. But I think mostly this works best is like the same way it works in front offices, where you have the analytics guy come in, raise concerns. Hey, I'm seeing these red flags. Do you have an explanation or justification for those red flags? And if you do, okay, maybe you dismiss those, but really more of a collaborative thing. I think our debates are the most fun, but really going to try and, again, your hit rate is crazy, Brett. So try and make this a more collaborative thing. And I'm just excited to be back and diving in with you. So who are we starting off with? First ever film versus analytics of the 2025 season.
Yeah, we're going to start with wide receiver Tet McMillan from Arizona. But before we do that, guys, if you're interested by the things you hear today, be sure to check out the Fantasy Points YouTube channel, subscribe, and turn notifications on. Also, over at fantasypoints.com, my 2025 prospect guide drops March 17th. Scott will also be releasing all of his model articles breaking down each prospect at each skill position. Some of those are already out, right? I think tight ends is out. Wide receivers is next to come. We're locked and loaded, man. So today we're talking Tet McMillan. Scott, how do you want to do this? You want me to start? You want to start? Let's get after here.
So I'll start us off. I think, looking at his analytics profile, he was a consensus 5-star recruit. He was immediately productive as a 19-year-old true freshman, led the team in receiving touchdowns, had 702 receiving yards. It was the most of any FBS freshman that year. And then the following season, he leveled up in a major way, nearly 1,400 receiving yards. Was the third most of any power conference wide receiver that year, behind only Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze. And then 2024, he was slightly more productive on a per game basis. But within the broader context, this was a really special season. You look at his 1319 receiving yards that season, 12 games. How many did the next closest Arizona receiver had? They only had 323. Cool. So McMillan finished with over 4 times that number. You contrast a number 1 receiver versus a number 2 receiver. That was the most by any power conference wide receiver this past decade. Over 4 times that number again. 44.3% yardage market share. 6th best mark this past decade. He was the only guy defenses needed to account for and stop, and they just couldn't stop him. And so broader context of the numbers. First power conference wide receiver with 1,200 yards in back-to-back seasons since A.J. Brown. He has 2 of the 3 best yards per team pass attempt seasons in this class. Over 3 in both years. Guys who have exceeded 3 in multiple years. It's only like 6 guys this past decade. They're all superstars. It's the Demaryius Thomas, Murray Coopers of the world. And so what I like to do is I want to dig into the numbers for more context, look into the usage, and all these were really strong. Green flags. Just 23% of his routes across his career came from the slot. Yards are a little easier to come by in the slot. That's what my model thinks. Perimeter outside elite production is more rare, more valuable. You put a premium on that. Led the class in production against single high coverage, over twice as much as many of the projected round 1, round 2 wide receivers in this year's class. Only 4% of his yards coming on screens. And so people ask for a comp, and I think this one is just too easy. It's just too Tet McMillan, Drake London, athletically look like exact clones of each other, same exact height, 6'4", same exact weight, 219 pounds, hand size, arm length, all exactly the same. But you digging into the numbers, they're all exactly the same by targets per route run, yards per route run, first downs per route run, yards after the catch per reception, contested target rate, contested catch rate, deep target percentage, slot target. The very, very close to being exactly identical. Drake London was a really high ranking prospect for me. I will say Drake London was a little bit better just because he was a year younger. He had tougher target competition against Amon-Ra St. Brown, Michael Pittman, at least as a freshman. But you see so many of the same things where for his size, freakish at forcing missed tackles. That was Drake London, one of the best career missed tackle rates this past decade. Tet McMillan last year, he forced minus screens 25 missed tackles. That was the third most by any power conference wide receiver this past decade. Again, with the size and for being so good at contested catches, contested catch rate, you worry that he sees an overwhelming number of percentage of his targets coming contested. That wasn't the case for either wide receiver. I did say that was the case for Drake London when he was coming out, but after I tweeted that, PFF changed all his numbers. So neither is a red flag with the contested catches, just a green flag for being really good at it. And so, I like this comp. I think he's almost a Drake London caliber prospect, which is a very high-end prospect in my model. I think he's far and away the best wide receiver prospect in this class. People are saying he's now a late round 1 guy. I think he's number 1, head and shoulders of everyone else. Maybe Travis Hunter, you call him a full-time wide receiver. That changes the equation. We don't really know about that. But yeah, man, I love this guy. I feel really convicted, and I'm dying to know what you think.
Yeah, dude, you kind of nailed it. I mean, honestly, I don't have a lot of pushback on anything you said, really. He's definitely a Drake London caliber prospect. His film score for me is slightly higher than Drake's, actually.
Wow.
You mentioned the prototype X-frame, height, weight, speed combo, excellent body control. Body control is my number 1 trait for wide receivers, by the way, for those that don't remember from last year. He scores excellently there. That body control you see is the benchmark for all of his other skills that he has. He's a really ridiculous route runner for his size. You don't see a lot of 6'4" guys move as fluidly as he does, despite the long stride, the long legs. I love everything about him from a route running standpoint. He can adequately threaten the vertical plane. So I call them wrong releases, where if he wants to go outside of you, he's going to threaten you with an inside release and get in your blind spot and stack you. You never know what route is coming. His ability to sink and explode at that height, it's very reminiscent of a Mike Evans or a Drake London. So I think he's slightly more explosive than Drake even, but they score very favorably. Drake was my wide receiver 2 in his draft class. Jameson Williams was my wide receiver 1. So I think, saying Tet is a little bit better. He's a typical top 10 pick at wide receiver to me.
So something that really separates him from everyone else is I try really hard looking for red flags from an analytics perspective, and just wasn't the case. There wasn't a single red flag, just such a clean prospect. And an area where you and I will disagree, and this could be the case with Jameson Williams, is you're looking at things from an NFL perspective and the value they bring to an NFL team. And maybe a criticism of you is well, you work for a fantasy site. Why can't you just know this? And it's no. You're too good. Your hit rate's so good. Maybe not Jameson Williams versus Drake London, but for the most part, really excellent. And so I don't want to mess with that at all. That's my job. Is you give me your film grade, And then I translate it into fantasy where you have, let's say, like a potential PPR cheat code versus a guy who's just elite at the deep ball, stretches defenses have to change how they have to account for him. And so that archetype doesn't lead to as many fantasy points as like a potential PPR cheat code. And I see Tet McMillan as being a workhorse, being a high-end volume guy, which is great for fantasy, great for PPR. And so ultimately, you agreed with me, Brad, like wide receiver 1 and not really anyone else coming close to him, right?
For sure. The drop off from wide receiver 1 to the next guy this year is a starker contrast in any class that I can remember in recent memory. So totally agree with you there. I agree with you on the red flags too. It was hard to find them. I wrote 2 down for this conversation, and they're the things that are going to make you laugh. Like, he's not super active in the run game. He's not going to dog it, but he's not going to also go out there, and he's not going to give you like Amon-Ra reps as a run blocker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's not, whatever, who cares, right? And I guess the nature of him being such a long strider, some of those underneath, like really fast speed release type routes, you see like a Josh Downs or a Malik Neighbors run, it's just not going to be in his wheelhouse. But who cares? Like, we've seen Mike Evans and Drake London thrive despite that. He's not going to have that super quick twitch route running underneath, but honestly, it literally doesn't matter. Those are the only 2 red flags I could really think of.
Yeah. And what do you think he's going to run at the 40?
I kind of am like a mid to late 4.4 guy.
Ooh, I mean, that's really good. Like, you know me, I'm like, athleticism is overrated. It doesn't really matter at the wide receiver position. Yeah, I think he could run late 4.5s, and it really wouldn't change the equation for me. Don't forget, Drake London never ran the 40-yard dash.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is, anytime a guy's like long like he is, you assume it's like that build up speed, and I think that's true for Tet to some degree. But the GPS numbers I have access to, he is the fastest GPS time of any wide receiver in the class.
What?
Yeah, I mean,
that's shocking.
It's build up. Like the play that I think he hit that mark on, that top speed mark. It's like a 70-yard touchdown in which no one touched him for 60 yards of that run. So he had plenty of runway to open up and really gear up into it. You don't get that in a 40-yard dash. It's from stopped to 40 yards and you're done. So I'm not claiming he's the fastest functional receiver in the class, but I do think in the open field when he really strides it out, he's plenty fast. And if you're talking like the vertical route tree, there, if he's running 4.5 at that height, weight, and length, I don't really care.
Yeah, and again, I'm saying it doesn't matter. Like, let's say he runs a 4.58. He's has tremendous size, great at contested catches, awesome deep, strong route run, and then like on the short to intermediate stuff, again, he elite tackle breaker last year, and so he has that element to his game as well. Where I don't know that you really need the speed, but apparently that's just another cherry on top for Tet McMillan. So, Brett, where does he rank historically for you? And are there any ideal landing spots versus like totally unideal landing spots?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see him in a New England uniform. I think they're desperate for a wide receiver 1. Doesn't feel like we're going to get that, right? They pick 4, and I think they're probably going to go O-line. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at my historical rankings here. I have him. So he would be 8th all time for me. So that's pretty high praise.
What's all time for you? How many years have you been doing this?
This is my 11th season.
Wow. Can you tell me who ranks around him?
Yeah, so he would be sandwiched between A.J. Brown and Malik Neighbors.
Whoa. Damn. So yeah, this is a Fantasy Points flag plant player for us, Tet McMillan. I don't want to spoil too much of the future episodes, but yeah, it's I don't think it's the best wide receiver class, at least not from an analytics perspective. Maybe you can disagree with me with some of your film darlings, but yeah, I've been saying because this running back class is so stacked and there's tight ends I really like. I might leave all of my rookie drafts without a wide receiver. And then Tet McMillan is the one exception. But with this running back class, so good, so deep, you could just take a shotgun blast approach to it. And it's really hard to miss on a guy. A unique, special running back class where it feels like 2.5 times like the typical running back class is like 2022, 2023 times 2.5 rolled into one. Just such a good class. And so, but Tet McMillan for me is the exception, where I would be so happy to walk away from my draft with him.
Yeah, and I'm not the dynasty expert you are, Scott, but like I look at it like, man, this running back class is so deep and this wide receiver class is so buns. If I have the 101 or the 102, I might take Tet and be very confident in my ability to get a running back later. And we know that wide receivers intrinsically hold value longer than running backs in dynasty too. So I think that's a value play to take him at the top and then grab all your running backs. I just did a mock draft with Theo Greminger and Derek Brown, a dynasty mock draft, and I think I drafted, I don't know, 8 running backs with my picks or something ridiculous. It was pretty good. So.
Yeah, so opportunity cost plays a role, and like you said, there's one elite wide receiver, and there's a ton of good running backs. So, I think this about wraps it up for us on Tet McMillan. Glad to see we're all aligned. The next wide receiver we're going to get into, I think I'm going to be a little bit more vicious, or you will be too. But Tet McMillan, clean prospect, no red flags, just a ton to like.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, everyone. We will be back with another episode very shortly.